Alright, this week I've been building a roof over the deck, and whilst doing it I've been thinking about the way in which the law interacts with building. I think in the past more informal structures like cabins, baches, places by the sea were built DIY. The law is changing. Does this mean that these sorts of buildings are becoming a thing of the past?
In the last few decades, laws surrounding basic construction have grown and multiplied to the point that building almost entirely belongs to the licensed builder, the architect, and the engineer. You could argue this is a good thing. Leave it to the professionals for a higher quality house. But is there a danger that we might lose something? Skills once passed down from parent to child, and the buildings themselves that inform our cultural heritage. We've become used to the red tape that surrounds every aspect of home building, but it wasn't always this way. In the past, families built their own places, often simple holiday homes or hunting cabins. In New Zealand, they were called baches, patched together from corrugated iron, recycled timber, and mismatched windows. In the US, it might have been a log cabin or a hunting shack, retreats into the wood, raised by hand. In Australia, bush shacks of tin and scrap dotted the landscape. Today, it varies state to state, but in many places, local inspectors now have the final say. Your shed, your extension, even your cabin in the woods may not last if it's not signed off. It isn't that the rules are malicious. They exist for safety, fairness, and quality.
That's it. Nice.
And it's true, without oversight, some homes were poorly built. In New Zealand, there was the leaky homes crisis. But while codes protect us from those mistakes, they also risk erasing the culture of ordinary people building for themselves. But the shift is striking from a world where DIY was normal to one where using the wrong type of timber can make you a lawbreaker. There is also an economic side to this. Back then, a simple cabin by the sea could be thrown up by anyone with the drive to do it. Today, those same coastlines are lined with multi-million-dollar homes, floor-to-ceiling glass, the preserve of the wealthy. DIY culture has faded, and access has become socially stratified. What was once within easy reach of every man with a trailer and a hammer is now the preserve of the wealthy. Once the everyman built by hand, now the wealthy build by proxy.
It just needs to come away though. Bloody hell.
And that's where the deeper question begins. Not just what we build, but what we lose when building is taken away from us. So what have we lost? Part of it's independence, but part of it is joy. There is a joy in learning by doing, joy in failing, in fixing and trying again. Generational skills, mending fences, patching roofs, wiring a shed, once passed down through families, could end up disappearing. And what we gain in efficiency, specialists for every task, we lose in participation. Because this is the paradox. When you outsource everything, life becomes easier, but it's also dull.
Use that one. Maybe.
We live in a world where we can summon almost anything with a tap. But the cost is what we've forgotten. the satisfaction of making. When I was a kid, the adults seemed far more creative. Men would disappear into their garages in the evening and make impressive things. One neighbour restored cars. Another even built a plane. That memory stands in contrast to today's doom scrolling. And it wasn't just men in their garages. Women too created, repaired and preserved. Sewing clothes by hand, mending, bottling fruit and putting away food for winter. Families brewed their own beer and wine, fixed things that broke, and found resourceful ways to stretch what they had. People were creative, resourceful, and proud of it. It was a spirit that feels increasingly rare today. For me, this has become real through the projects on this land. The first time I built something, I had to watch countless videos online and think it through step by step. Each project since has grown my skills a little and my confidence. And with that growth has become a hunger to push further, to attempt something more ambitious, more challenging. If I had simply hired a builder to put everything up, the structures might have arrived sooner, but I would have learned far less. There has definitely been the odd moment of fear or frustration, but joy often waits on the other side of that. Perhaps that's the deeper question. If we can't even fix our own homes anymore, what else are we quietly handing over? And what does that mean for how free we really are? On a personal level, when I stumble into an old seaside town in New Zealand, I love walking along the rows of old baches, each one more quirky than the last. They are utterly charming to me, and I can imagine the families who pulled together to build them. I don't feel the same joy when I walk past a row of architecturally designed palaces by the sea. And the sad fact is that the old baches are being replaced, becoming ever more rare. For me, they bring a lot of happiness, and I don't want the next generation to miss out on even knowing them. The joy of work is not in its product, It's in the process. That may be what's really at stake, not just whether we can legally build, but whether we are allowed to find meaning in the act of building itself.
So the structure of this is pretty much finished. I just need to put up some roofing panels and we're done. Let me know your opinion on this. I'm somewhat kind of conflicted on it. On the one hand, I understand the need for regulation, and I actually think a lot of the building code's really useful. You know, what bolts you should use, what screws and so forth. You know, an engineer has looked at that, so that's useful. But there's another side of it too, where I feel like we could lose something culturally. I also think some of the buildings that are built maybe without the best adherence to code can be quite interesting and cool, and we don't want to lose that. So I don't know, I'm not quite sure what to think. Let me know your opinions in the comments, see if we can figure it out together. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week.